Welcome to the Conscious Conception Show with me, Sue Ritchie. This show will take you from confusion to clarity, confidence and emotional healing to a joyful pregnancy. This is the place where we uncover the real truth about fertility and why preparing for conception, mind, body and soul, is more important than ever. With honest, empowering conversations, we'll explore the hidden factors impacting fertility and how a holistic approach can help you take back control of your journey. Whether you're trying naturally, navigating IVF, or just starting out, know this: you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're already on your way. So let's walk this path together. Welcome to the Conscious Conception Show. Hi, I'm Sue Ritchie and I'm a holistic health and fertility specialist. And I'm so delighted that you're joining us today on the show. We're certainly going to have a very interesting conversation all around the topic of why self-care, alignment and healing before conception really matter for your fertility. And today I have the lovely Andrea Clarke joining me on the show. And Andrea is a womb and pelvic alchemist. Interesting, eh? We're going to be exploring how self-care, healing old wounds and living in alignment can open the door to not only increasing your chances of conceiving, but leading you to a healthier pregnancy, birthing experience, and a happier and healthier start for your future baby. Andrea supports women reconnecting with their womb, their pelvis and their vagina, the deep feminine centers of creativity, vision, safety and power. And she works with women who may have experienced trauma, loss, abuse and feminine reproductive issues. And often those lead to a sense of disconnection or numbness, and she gently guides them on a journey back to embodiment. To be fully present in life, we must feel safe in our bodies. She draws on a unique blend of somatic bodywork, womb energy medicine, and holistic pelvic care, as well as feminine embodiment. And she helps release tension, pain, and stored emotional memory, allowing for profound healing and reconnection to happen. And, Andrea facilitates workshops, she does retreats, and she organises women's circles, and that's both online and in person. So welcome, Andrea, to the show. Really delighted to have you here. I've actually had some experience of being on the receiving end of some of Andrea's work, which was certainly an amazing and powerful experience. So, and I'm probably thinking, Andrea, that, the work that you do probably isn't that familiar to perhaps many people who are listening on the show today. So, I was wondering if you could maybe start by sharing a bit about how you came to be doing this work. Was there a sort of one event that led to it, or was it a combination of things that came together?
No, I think it wasn't one event. It's been a steady trickle with little explosive pieces in there that have really kind of shifted my path. I started off as a body worker and energy healer nearly 30 years ago. And as any practitioner knows, any therapist knows, you add like little bits and pieces as you move along, and you start to feel into where you want to kind of take that journey. So I think a big shift came when I studied and began working with reproductive reflexology. So that was kind of a big piece, and that really started on my journey with working with clients with fertility issues. And then the next kind of big piece that came in was the women fertility massage training, and I eventually became one of the associate trainers for that. But that really started to shift my awareness into the body. Um, and then from that came the holistic pelvic care, which is is internal work. So it's intravaginal massage. It's based on the work of Tammy Kent, who wrote an amazing book called Wild Feminine. I would always recommend any woman who is on a journey to understanding the feminine landscape to read that book. And then the next big piece was the feminine embodiment, and that was the piece really that shifted my understanding and awareness of bringing this healing from the inside out, if you like. So rather than connecting to spirit through the crown, then I started to begin to actually working deeply with the womb space, because I do feel that the womb is an aspect of our consciousness. I feel that she's traveled with us through many lifetimes, that she carries the memories and the experiences from those lifetimes. I feel she carries the ancestral pieces, whether from the masculine or feminine lines. And she is our way of connecting to source energy. So however you want to term that, whether that's source energy, for me, I refer to it as Great Mother, because that for me is the beginning piece, if you like. So that's kind of my journey, and they're all woven into each other. So whether I see somebody in person or online, I bring all of those pieces to the table.
Yeah, our wombs are, I think, an often forgotten power source, if you like, for us women.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's a lot about embodiment at the moment. It's kind of like a real body, it's a real kind of buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah.
Talking about embodiment. But for me, you cannot be fully embodied if you ignore this kind of like bottom part of your body, this pelvic region, and you've never done any work around that. It just like you, for me, that's just not possible, because it's just such a big part of that journey into true embodiment and that feeling safety in the body that you talked about at the beginning.
Mm. So many women sort of see fertility struggles as, perhaps more about a physical issues going on.
Mm,
And like you, I see it actually, it's a much, much bigger thing than that. And,
mm,
as human beings, we're mind, body, and spirit, and, everything is connected to each other and
mm,
has an impact on each other. So
mm,
I'm interested to hear why you see sort of struggles with fertility as really as a sort of deeper wake up call where,
mm,
we need to take perhaps a better deeper look into the whole of our lives to see what's
mm,
what's actually going on and what's missing.
mm. Yeah, I think, I've worked with clients who are maybe not interested in that, and they are just interested in the physicality of the hormonal balance and the conditions, or whatever it is. And that's fine, because, as practitioners, we meet our clients where they're ready to be met. So that's okay. So it's really, um for me, it's an opportunity to be curious. Like when there is pain in the body, when there is a disorder, when there is dis-ease in the body, that for me is the body signaling to us there is something not quite right. It's trying to get your attention. And so generally those signals don't go away. They become a little bit louder and a little bit louder and a little bit more prevalent. And again, some people will choose not to step into that part of the curiosity piece, and that's absolutely okay, because we're all navigating life in a different way. But some people and some women will find it really like a deeply important part of their journey in their fertility journey. So for me, it's an opportunity to connect with the body and feel into what is going on. Like if I have menstrual pain, what is that menstrual pain about? What am I maybe holding in that space? What have I not looked at? Is there a way that I can nurture this space that I haven't before? Indeed, am I even connected to this space? Or because it gives me pain and I've got fertility issues, I've disconnected from it? which is a totally natural and normal response. Because whenever there's a part of the body that is causing us pain, we kind of just want to ignore it and quieten it down. But I think, generally with the womb, she just gets louder and louder until you kind of hear. So it's an opportunity. I just feel my earpiece is going to plop out any minute. It's an opportunity to take a pause, take a moment, take some breaths, and okay, what is going on? And it's always about curiosity because that's just a much softer, more nurturing and nourishing way of looking at it rather than kind of like, this is not talking about blame. Like if there's ancestral pieces, we're not blaming anybody, we're just noticing what has transpired in the past, like those family patterns, and how we might actually go, do you know what? I don't actually want that family pattern to continue to the next generation. So I'm actually going to step up and do what I need to do. That's part of my calling, is to work with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a, a very good thing. I think it is about, that curiosity of looking into, what do I need to do? What is not right here? What's actually, not in
Mm,
alignment in my life that I need to sort of
mm,
take notice of. So,
mm,
how can sort of self-care and sort of coming into living life, really in alignment with who we really are,
mhm.
support both fertility and, people's general overall well-being?
I think there's a couple of pieces in that. So we can kind of if we look at self-care as particularly when it's related to fertility stroke conscious conception. I prefer conscious conception rather than fertility, or back in the day it was infertility, which was an awful term to be using.
Yes, it is. You don't want to
If we
use
look at,
it.
yes, exactly. If we kind of feel into self-care, so you could you could maybe make suggestions to a client that pelvic steaming would be useful, that using castor oil packs might be a useful thing to do, that seed cycling might be a useful thing to do, that having an awareness of their menstrual cycle is a useful thing to do. Now, if you go into those things and tick them off as like it's a checklist of, she's told me to do this, this, and this. So I'm going to do this, and this. That tends not to be received by the body in quite the same way if we are choosing to do it because it's something that we enjoy, something that we feel is beneficial, something that is part of this journey. Because as I do these things, emotions and experience might kind of tend to kind of rise up and bubble up. So there's kind of like, there's doing self-care, if you like, and being the self-care. So if we're doing it, my suggestion would be just kind of look at that again, just being curious, is that actually what I'm doing? Or am I doing it because it's nurturing and nourishing and beneficial for me? Like changing the products I use on my hair or to clean my home. Do I do that because I have to do it? Or actually, it's going to benefit me. It's going to benefit the planet and it's going to benefit me. So,
And it's going to
yes,
benefit
this
you
feels
as
like a
well
good
when it
thing to
comes
do.
along too. Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it's about nurturing, isn't it? I really feel self-care has to be about really nurturing ourselves. And I
Mm.
think that as women, we don't do enough nurturing of ourselves.
Well, no, because the thing is, as women, we're taught, the idealization of woman is woman in summer, the inner summer, outer summer, as mother, selflessly giving, and really putting herself at the bottom of the pile. So then, when we're then asking a woman who has difficulty conceiving to actually put herself to the forefront of that and be using self-care to support herself, to nourish herself, to nurture herself, it can be quite tricky for a lot of people. And there's also a piece in that about being able to receive as well. Like as women, we're not shown and taught how to receive, so we can be very good at, giving out that energy, but to receive is kind of like, whoa, that kind of brings into all the self-worth and all of that kind of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Like
And I think that's
me,
huge when it comes to fertility as well, is that whole thing
yeah,
around being able to receive and, acknowledging
mm,
ourselves for who we are as well.
yeah, yeah. So I think, when we use self-care in a nourishing and nurturing way and in an open way, and our body is kind of like definitely receiving it, and our womb is receiving it, and everything is starting to feel a little bit more energized, a little bit more rosy, a little bit more, yeah, I've got a little bit more of a jig in my step, and everything's kind of like everything's feeling a bit more easeful. Then by virtue of that, we're moving into alignment, because then by virtue of that, we begin to listen, and then we start to notice the cues. So maybe to begin with, somebody else is kind of like guiding you in that noticing. And then, it's a bit like body work. If you have body work and then you have a few sessions of body work and you kind of start to notice yourself, actually, when I sit in the car, I'm sitting all a little bit lopsided, and maybe that's playing into this back pain I'm getting here and this shoulder pain. It's the same kind of thing. So as we hold somebody's hand and take them through this journey, they start to have their own awareness. And so it's kind of like almost kind of built in that we start to move back into a greater sense of alignment with ourselves. Because all of the other stuff is kind of like the wounding and the debris and the emotional trauma and all the rest of it, which means that we're living from those spaces as opposed to from a clearer space. That will take you in a very different trajectory. Like how we show up in life is a direct response to what we've experienced. But if we start clearing some of those experiences, then we can move off in a somewhat different direction.
Yeah. So how would you say, unhealed trauma or, unresolved emotional wounds, how do they impact fertility? And, why do you think, I think same as I do, is why do you think that healing before conception is just really so important for not only both parents, but also for obviously, a future child as well?
Mhm. I mean, my personal view is, and we have spoken about this, so I know you're kind of like on the same page with me as this, is that um, consciousness is shifting, is changing, accelerating, and the souls that are waiting to come earthside are changing, shifting, evolving. They have different needs and requirements, and some of them come will be coming in with very specific um, projects, tasks, things that they are here to do, and they they're needing their parents to be starting to wake up, to be awake, to be awakening. I just always think, and it always makes me smile when I think about it, when I imagine all these souls um beyond the veil, and they're just kind of like, obviously, we incarnate, my belief is, to people we've had experiences with before, but you could just imagine them like, oh, this woman, like she's kind of like she's like really connected with this woman. She's actually creating a really gorgeous space for me to be hanging out in for 9 months, and she's resting when she's bleeding, and she's eating nourishing food, and she's doing this, and that's got to look really appealing, you know? I
Fighting
mean,
even.
I'm not saying that somebody who hasn't done that is not going to be appealing, because souls arrive in for very specific reasons. So I'm not saying that, but it just must be like, just like a really, yeah, it must look so inviting to see parents working with their own stuff, healing their own stuff, and going on that journey together. And I'm not saying in the fertility journey, which, I've worked with some clients that has lasted for, years and years and years and years. And sometimes they're on the same page and sometimes they're not. And sometimes they're briefly on that same page and then they kind of go off and then they come back, but they're still doing the work, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And I think it's, also the situation is like, if a couple are incredibly busy 24 hours a day, never really taking time to sit down and be
Mm,
quiet, my sort of thought
mm,
around that is, what soul is going to want to come into that environment, if you
mm,
like,
mm,
because,
mm.
they want to be in an environment where, the parents are going to have time to nurture them, take care of themselves, but also being taking care of themselves as well.
Absolutely.
So,
And I
yeah.
think that plays into the nutrition piece, doesn't it? That you
Absolutely. Got to be eating
choose
the right
to
food, really
but you
nurturing the
choose
body.
to make time to be making that nurturing and nourishing food.
Yeah,
It's so for some couples, it is about changing their perspective and changing how they're currently choosing to be living and what they're doing. Because we all have choices about, um, do I spend more time buying the groceries and kind of picking them really beautifully, or do I just kind of like scoop up the nearest thing? But we have to understand that what we're eating, it's like the fuel you put into an engine. It does have an impact. So the more time that you can spend with that is generally received pretty well by the body.
yeah,
No
definitely.
idea if I answered your question there or
No,
not.
no, no. It's that's great. I think it's it's really about people nurturing themselves and nourishing themselves, if you like,
Mm,
as
mm,
couples, so that actually when baby arrives, if you like, they're in that right
mm.
zone that they're going to follow that. And for me, the
Yeah,
baby is then going to be actually taking that on board, if you like, right from day one.
yeah,
And
yeah,
let's have some healthier babies. That's my view anyway.
absolutely. Because what happens in conception and in utero and birth, they all impact what happens to a child as that child is born and grows up. So, looking into that, looking into contraception on a maybe a deeper level is to kind of consider those things. So, for a child to be conceived within a loving relationship is like the most beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
Mm.
if someone's listening feeling out of balance or disconnected right now, what is sort
Mhm.
of, maybe one sort of gentle first step that they can sort of take today,
Mm.
really, to sort of begin sort of tuning back into their body and,
Mm.
creating that healthier environment for conception to happen?
Mm. I think, you can start really simple, literally placing one hand over the heart and one hand over the womb space, and maybe imagining an energetic connection between
Wow.
those two spaces. Maybe imagining a liquid golden light moving between those two spaces. Maybe placing two hands over the womb space and really just taking a few breaths to see what that actually just feels like. Does that actually feel comfortable, or does that feel like really alien? Like, do I even, does that feel good at all? So maybe like placing the hands on their thighs and seeing how that feels, or giving yourself a bit of a hug and noticing
That's
where
beautiful.
you, yeah, noticing where your body begins and ends, or
So
like the
that's
face.
wonderful. To where we're really coming now towards the end of the show. It goes so
Mm.
quickly. So it would be really lovely, Andrew, if you could, share, how people can connect with you. And also, I think you mentioned that you have a special offer that you'd like to share with our listeners today as well.
A special offer. I can't remember what that is. I know. Oh, that's what it is. So, well, it's something that I offer to anybody who's interested. Like it's a connection call. So it's a free 30-minute connection call, depending on where somebody is. If they're in the UK, I tend to do it by mobile, but I'm quite happy to do it by Zoom or, as a video call, because often people want to see what I look like and just check I've not got two heads and stuff like that, which is fine. So that is absolutely not a hard sell. It's kind of almost like a little mini session in and of itself. So it's 30 minutes for you to really come and bring to me what it is that's going on, where you're going, what support you need, and we kind of feel into how that might look and how much that might work. And then you could also sign up to my womb oracle on my website. And if you do that, you will get a 30-minute little mini workshop, which is called Conscious Womb Connections.
And your
And that
website
is,
is?
yeah, that is www.rootmedicine.co.uk.
And where can people connect with you on social media?
Generally on Instagram, that's kind of my place to hang out. And so that is root.medicine. But
Okay.
if you put my name in, I should kind of like pop up at some point.
Wow, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely wonderful having this conversation, and
Mm,
it's been a real pleasure, I think, to discuss, what I feel is an important aspect, but sometimes overlooked aspect of fertility. And, you sharing your wisdom all around, the womb and the healing and whatever you do, and particularly, the healing before conception.
mm.
So thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. Please join me every third Tuesday of the month at 3:30 p.m. in the UK, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, and 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And if today's episode has resonated with you, please, share it with someone who, perhaps might need to hear it today. And if there's one thing that I hope you take away today, is that, when conception doesn't seem to be happening, it's important to be really taking a deeper, more holistic look into where things might be out of alignment in your life, what might need to, be healed, what might, where there might be a need for you to, be nurturing yourself more and, giving yourself more self-love. And, we're not just talking about conception, we're talking about creating healthy, happy couples who are supported, informed, and empowered to become healthy, happy parents. Because when you nurture yourself, mind, body, and spirit, you really create the very best environment for your baby to thrive in. And to me, that's the heart of it all, creating healthy, happy parents to make healthy, happy babies. And I do hope that you will join me for the next episode, which will be next month, November the 18th. And until then, please treat yourself very kindly. Take good care of yourself because you really are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Conscious Conception Show with me, Sue Ritchie. To stay informed and inspired, be sure to tune in every third Tuesday of the month at 7:30 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe so you never miss an episode and sign up for my newsletter for helpful tips on boosting fertility and preparing for positive, empowered parenthood. If you're ready for more support, connect with me on social media on Instagram and LinkedIn and at Optimum Fertility, or visit my website at sue-ritchie.com.